Welcome back to the TechnoPanda podcast. Today we're going to go on a deep dive into something pretty fascinating. Yeah, it's declining fertility rates. It's a global trend, and we're seeing it here in the US as well. Fewer babies being born. And while some of that is probably people choosing to start families later, there's this growing suspicion that there's more to the story. So we're going to explore the question that's making a lot of people uneasy. Could everyday chemicals be playing a role? And to help us unpack this complex issue, we've got an expert in reproductive health and environmental factors joining us today.
Well, thank you.
I'm really eager to hear your insights on all this.
Great.
So let's start with something that really caught my eye when I was doing some research for this. I came across this story about Kirsty Phillips. She's a nurse anesthetist, and she'd been struggling to get pregnant for a while. And she decided to make some radical changes to her lifestyle.
Uh-huh.
And what do you know? She ended up having 2 healthy babies. The kicker is that a big part of her change was tossing out anything with synthetic fragrances, scented candles, lotions, air fresheners, the whole 9 yards. She went all in on reducing her exposure to chemicals. So, I know one person's experience doesn't prove anything scientifically.
Right.
But it makes you wonder, right?
Yeah, totally.
Like, is there a connection there? Could reducing exposure to certain chemicals really make that much of a difference?
Well, it's a great question. And while Kirsty's story is anecdotal,
Right.
it does align with some of the concerns that researchers are raising about the potential impact of environmental chemicals on fertility.
I see.
It's like a piece of a puzzle.
Yeah.
Her experience might not be the whole picture, but it definitely hints at a bigger picture we need to explore.
So let's zoom out and look at the broader landscape here. We're seeing this decline in birth rates, not just in humans, but in animals too. And researchers are pointing to these things called endocrine disruptors as potential culprits. So can you break down for us what those are and why they're raising red flags?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Endocrine disruptors are chemicals that can interfere with our hormonal systems. And, think of hormones as the messengers that control a whole range of bodily functions, including reproduction. So imagine these disruptors as imposters. They can mimic hormones, tricking the body, or they can block hormones altogether.
I see.
Disrupting those crucial signals.
So it's like they're throwing a wrench into this delicate machinery of our body. And the scary part is that these endocrine disruptors aren't lurking in some obscure lab.
Oh, right.
They're in everyday products we use, right?
Exactly. That's what makes this so concerning. We're exposed to them through things like plastic packaging, cosmetics, furniture, even our food and water. It's practically unavoidable.
Yeah.
They're so ubiquitous, they've even been detected in the urine of over 90% of the US population.
Wow. That's a sobering statistic.
Yeah.
It really drives home the scale of this exposure.
Uh-huh.
So let's talk specifics.
Okay.
Are there any particular chemicals that researchers are most concerned about when it comes to fertility?
There are a few key players that stand out.
Okay.
One group you've probably heard of is PFAS.
Yeah.
They've earned the nickname forever chemicals because they stick around in the environment
Yeah.
and our bodies for a very long time.
Okay, so I've heard about those. They were non-stick cookware, right?
That's right.
And waterproof clothing,
Yeah.
and also in some food packaging, stain-resistant fabrics.
Yeah.
And the concern with PFAS is that studies have linked higher levels in the blood
Right.
to a decreased chance of getting pregnant and having a successful birth.
Exactly.
There's also some research suggesting potential links to conditions like PCOS and endometriosis,
Yeah.
which can also impact fertility.
Yeah,
So PFAS is definitely one to keep on our radar.
for sure.
What about other chemicals? Are there any others that are particularly worrisome?
Another one that's been on the hot seat is bisphenol A or BPA.
Okay.
It's commonly used to line food cans and in some plastics.
Okay.
And studies have linked BPA to fertility problems in women.
Got it.
And in men, it's been associated with poor semen quality,
Wow.
undescended testicles,
Okay.
and even testicular cancer.
So that's PFAS and BPA. Any others we should be aware of?
Yes, phthalates are another group that's raising concerns.
Okay.
They're often found in those scented products we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Things like perfumes,
Right.
air fresheners, and even some personal care products.
Interesting.
Research suggests they could be linked to lower egg yields in women
I see.
and potential sperm count issues in men.
Okay.
And remember Kirsty Phillips, who you talked about earlier?
Yeah.
She tossed out all of her scented products.
It's all starting to connect now.
Yeah.
So we've got this cocktail of chemicals that we're exposed to on a daily basis.
Right.
and there's mounting evidence suggesting they could be messing with our fertility. It's a little unsettling, to say the least.
Oh, sure.
But before we dive into what we can do about it,
Okay.
I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier, declining sperm counts.
Yeah.
It's a trend we've been hearing about for a while.
Right.
But is there a direct link between lower sperm counts and lower fertility rates?
That's a question that's sparking a lot of debate in the scientific community.
Oh, okay.
But what is alarming is the sheer rate at which sperm counts have been dropping.
Yeah.
One study showed a nearly 60% decline across the developed world
Oh, wow.
between 1973 and 2011.
That's a huge drop. What are researchers attributing that to?
Well, there are multiple factors at play.
Yeah.
But one researcher, Shanna Swan,
Sure.
makes a compelling argument that endocrine disrupting chemicals are likely playing a significant role.
I see.
She points out that we're seeing similar declines in fertility in animals like dogs and horses.
Interesting.
And those animals aren't making lifestyle choices to delay parenthood, right?
Right, yeah.
It points to something environmental being at play.
That's a really interesting point.
Yeah.
So while societal shifts, like women choosing to have children later in life,
Right.
are definitely contributing to falling birth rates.
Right.
It seems like that's not the whole story.
Exactly. There's a growing body of research suggesting that those societal factors alone fully explain the trends we're seeing.
So where does the chemical industry stand on all of this? I imagine they have a different perspective.
Yes, the American Chemistry Council maintains that their products are safe
Okay.
at the levels humans are typically exposed to. They argue that it's difficult to isolate the impact of any single factor on fertility because it's influenced by so many things.
So it's a bit of a chicken or the egg situation.
Right.
With scientists pointing to potential harm
Yeah.
and the industry defending the safety of their products.
Yeah,
It sounds like this is a complex issue with a lot of nuances.
absolutely.
It's definitely a lot to think about. So let's shift gears a bit and talk about what's being done to address this. Are there any regulations in place to protect us from these endocrine disruptors? And unfortunately, the answer is a bit complicated. The EPA here in the US acknowledges that endocrine disruptors can interfere with reproduction, but they also admit that the current testing methods make it really difficult to fully assess the risks.
So it's a bit of a catch-22.
Right.
We know there's a potential problem,
Yeah.
but we don't have the tools to fully grasp the extent of it.
Uh-huh.
It sounds a little frustrating.
It is. Yeah, it can be.
Are any other countries taking a more proactive approach?
Yes. Actually, the European Union is taking a much bolder stance. They've proposed drastically limiting BPA use,
Okay.
specifically because of reproductive toxicity concerns.
That's encouraging to hear. Is the U.S. considering anything similar?
The FDA has said they are reviewing the situation and considering a petition from some U.S. scientists to follow the EU's lead. But for now, their official stance is that BPA is safe at the levels currently found in food.
Right.
So it's a bit of a waiting game, unfortunately. It sounds like we're at a bit of a crossroads then.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
Mounting evidence suggesting these chemicals could be harming our fertility, but we're still grappling with how to address it on a regulatory level. It definitely feels like something we need to stay informed about.
Absolutely.
But in the meantime, what can we do on a personal level?
Yeah, that's a great question.
If we want to reduce our exposure to these potentially harmful chemicals, where should we start?
That's a question I get asked a lot.
Yeah.
And it can feel overwhelming at first.
Right.
But the good news is there are some practical steps you can take that can make a real difference.
Okay, give us the rundown. What are some simple swaps or changes we can make in our daily routines?
One of the easiest things to do is start reading labels more carefully.
Okay.
Look for products that are specifically labeled as BPA free,
Okay.
phthalate free, and PFAS free.
Right.
You might be surprised how many products now offer these safer alternatives.
That's a good tip.
Yeah.
Label reading can be tedious, but it seems worth it if it means reducing our exposure to these chemicals.
Right.
What about food packaging?
Yeah.
I'm thinking of things like microwave popcorn bags. I've heard those can be a source of PFAS.
You're right. Certain types of food packaging,
Yeah.
especially those designed for high heat or grease resistance, can contain PFAS.
Yeah.
Opting for air-popped popcorn or using a stovetop method is a good way to avoid that exposure.
Okay.
And when it comes to food storage containers, look for glass or stainless steel options instead of plastic.
What about those non-stick pans? Those are lifesavers in the kitchen, but I'm guessing they're on the avoid list.
You guessed right. Many nonstick pans are coated with PFAS.
Oh,
But there's good news.
okay.
There are now ceramic-coated pans that offer similar nonstick properties without using PFAS.
Okay, I'm adding that to my mental shopping list.
Yeah, good idea.
So we've talked about food and cookware.
Mm-hmm.
What about personal care products? I keep thinking back to Kirsty Phillips tossing out all her scented stuff.
Yeah.
Is that a good place to focus our efforts?
Absolutely. Fragrances are a major source of phthalates.
Okay.
Choosing fragrance-free options for things like
Mm,
body wash lotions and perfumes
got it.
can significantly reduce your exposure.
It sounds like fragrance-free is going to be my new go-to.
Yeah, a good strategy.
What about those plug-in air fresheners?
Those are tricky.
I love a good smelling home.
Right.
But are those a no-no?
Yes, unfortunately, those plug-in air fresheners are often loaded with phthalate. A better option is to switch to essential oil diffusers
Mm-hmm.
or natural alternatives like scented candles made with beeswax or soy wax.
Interesting.
Just make sure to choose candles that are free of synthetic fragrances and dyes.
So it sounds like we can make a big impact by making some relatively simple swaps.
Right.
It's all about finding those safer alternatives.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
And remember, every little bit helps.
Right.
You don't have to overhaul your entire life overnight.
Yeah.
Start with a few small changes and gradually incorporate more.
Okay.
As you learn more and become more aware of where these chemicals are hiding in your environment.
This is actually really empowering information.
I think so too.
It makes me feel like I can take some control of my health.
That's exactly the kind of mindset I want to encourage. Knowledge is power.
Mm-hmm.
And understanding these potential risks allows you to make informed choices
Right.
that are in line with your personal health goals.
So we've been talking a lot about avoiding these chemicals,
Yeah,
but is there anything we can do to help our bodies detox?
that's a great question
Yeah.
from the exposure we've already had.
Right. Is there a way to kind of clean up the mess, so to speak?
Our bodies do have natural detoxification processes.
Okay.
And there are things we can do to support them.
Okay, great. What are some of those?
Staying well hydrated is crucial.
Mm-hmm.
Water helps flush toxins out of our system.
Okay.
Eating a diet rich in fruits, vegetables, and fiber
Right.
also supports healthy detoxification.
So the classic advice of eating a balanced diet and staying hydrated still holds true.
It does, yeah.
Are there any specific foods that are known to be particularly helpful for detoxins?
Cruciferous vegetables like
Yeah.
broccoli, cauliflower, and Brussels sprouts are known to support liver detoxification,
Interesting.
which is a key process in eliminating harmful substances from the body.
Hmm.
And foods rich in antioxidants like berries, leafy greens, and nuts
Yeah.
help protect our cells from damage caused by toxins.
So it's back to that eat the rainbow philosophy.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of stress management.
Okay.
When we're stressed, our bodies are less efficient at detoxifying.
I see.
So incorporating stress-reducing activities like yoga meditation
Mhm.
or simply spending time in nature can make a big difference.
It all ties together, doesn't it?
It really does.
Our physical health, our mental health, our environment,
Yeah.
they're all interconnected.
For sure.
So we've spent a lot of time talking about the potential downsides of these chemicals.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to shift gears for a moment
Okay.
and talk about the exciting possibilities that research is uncovering. I've heard there are some really promising new developments in the field of reproductive health.
Yeah, there are.
What are some of the things that are giving you hope for the future?
There are definitely some incredible advancements happening.
Guy.
One area that's really promising is the development of personalized fertility treatment. Researchers are using genetic testing and other cutting-edge techniques to tailor treatments to individual needs, which is leading to higher success rate.
What else is on the horizon?
Another area that's generating a lot of buzz is the use of stem cells in fertility treatments. Researchers are exploring ways to use stem cells to regenerate ovarian tissue and even create eggs and sperm in the lab.
Really?
While this is still in the early stages of research, it holds tremendous potential for couples struggling with infertility.
That sounds almost like science fiction coming to life.
It really is.
It's amazing to think about the possibilities this could open up for people who are facing infertility.
It's truly groundbreaking stuff. And alongside these high-tech advancements, we're also seeing a growing movement towards more holistic approaches to fertility. So it's not just about the technology,
Right.
but about creating a more supportive and nurturing environment
Yes.
for couples who are going through this.
And that's where I see a real shift happening. There's a growing recognition that fertility is a complex issue, and addressing it requires a multifaceted approach
Yeah.
that considers all aspects of a person's well-being.
This is such a hopeful note to end on.
Yeah, I think so.
It's inspiring to hear about the strides being made in reproductive health, both in terms of technology
Right.
and in our overall understanding of fertility.
Yeah.
I feel like we've covered so much ground today.
You have.
From those everyday chemicals that could be lurking in our homes
Right.
to the cutting edge advancements that are giving hope to couples.
Who are struggling to conceive.
Yeah, it's been a great conversation.
If you had to distill it down to one key takeaway,
Okay.
what would you want our listeners to leave with today?
If I had to sum it up in one sentence, it would be this. Knowledge is power. By understanding the potential risks we face
Yeah.
and the options that are available to us,
Right.
we can make informed choices
Mm-hmm.
that empower us on our fertility journeys.
I love that.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to ask questions, to seek support, and to advocate for your health.
Couldn't agree more.
That's a powerful message. And on that note, I want to thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your expertise with us.
My pleasure.
This has been an incredible deep dive into a topic that's both fascinating and vitally important.
Yeah, for sure.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey of discovery. We encourage you to continue exploring this topic,
Yeah.
to do your own research, and to seek out reputable sources of information. Remember, your fertility journey is unique, and there are resources and support systems out there to help you every step of the way.
That's right.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay empowered.